Welcome to our deep dive. Before we open a single source today, I just want to warmly welcome you, the listener, and offer a heartfelt divine blessing for your day and the week ahead. May your time be fruitful, and may you find grace, clarity, and peace in whatever you're facing right now.
Yes, absolutely. It's so good to have you here with us.
It really is. And we have an incredibly thrilling deep dive for you today. We are looking at Acts chapter 22, starting in verse 30, and going all the way through chapter 23.
Right. And we've got some fantastic sources on the desk today. We're pulling from the Holman Study Bible, the NAA Study Bible, and a really comprehensive biblical commentary to help us navigate all this.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive is to basically unpack what is a high-stakes courtroom drama. I mean, that involves a secret assassination plot and this completely incredible midnight escape involving hundreds of troops.
It's intense. I mean, it reads less like standard history and more like a fast-paced geopolitical thriller.
It really does. And the hook for me, the thing that is just dripping with irony, is that you have this persecuted missionary, Paul, who ends up traveling like a king. Like, he is protected by the absolute might of the Roman army.
Which is it's the exact opposite of what you would expect to happen.
Exactly. But, okay, let's set the scene. Because this whole military crisis doesn't start with swords and shields. It starts in a courtroom.
Right. Paul has just been rescued from a violent mob by the Roman commander, Lysias.
And Lysias is just desperate, right? He has no idea why the local population is trying to tear this guy apart. So he essentially forces the Sanhedrin, that's the Jewish Supreme Council, he forces them to convene and just drops Paul right in the middle of them.
Which is a highly volatile situation. Paul is standing before this deeply hostile, prejudiced council, but instead of being defensive, he goes right on the offensive.
He really does. He looks them in the eye and says he has lived his life with a perfectly clear conscience before God.
And that statement alone just sets them off. High priest Ananias immediately and illegally orders the men standing near Paul to strike him right on the mouth.
Yeah, and when I was reading through the commentary sources about this whole concept of a clear conscience, I couldn't help but picture like a ship's compass.
Oh, a compass. How so?
Well, a compass needle naturally points true north, right? But imagine a carpenter doing some repairs on the ship, and he accidentally leaves this magnetized iron nail hidden right next to the compass.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, over hundreds of miles. That unseen nail just slowly pulls the needle a fraction of a degree off course. Eventually, it drives the ship straight into a reef.
That's a great analogy.
Right. Sin operates like that nail. Paul is basically arguing that he kept his compass clear of nails. Even when he was persecuting the early church, he was following his true north based on the light he had at the time.
Right, he was acting in accordance with what he genuinely believed was right.
Exactly. But Ananias, the high priest, his compass is it's completely surrounded by iron.
It is. His conscience is entirely silenced. And that is exactly what Paul attacks next. He just fires right back at him.
Oh, it's such a fiery response. He says, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall.
Which is such a brilliant, biting metaphor. I mean, a whitewashed wall in the ancient Near East, it was meant to look pristine and structurally sound on the outside.
Right, nice and bright white.
Exactly. But that white paint often concealed crumbling, inferior materials, or even rot.
So he's calling him a hypocrite?
Completely. Ananias is sitting there in these pure white linen priestly robes, supposedly embodying the perfect justice of the law. Yet he breaks the very same law by ordering Paul to be struck before any verdict is even rendered.
It's total corruption. But then it's interesting because the bystanders challenge Paul. They say, how dare you insult God's high priest? And Paul just immediately backtracks.
He does. He actually quotes Exodus 22, apologizing for speaking evil of a ruler.
But I kind of have to push back on this a little bit, based on what the sources were saying.
Okay, what's your hesitation?
Well, I get that Roman occupation caused rapid turnover in Jewish leadership. But Ananias is presiding over the Sanhedrin. He is literally sitting in the seat of authority. So how does Paul, this highly educated Pharisee, genuinely not recognize the high priest?
That is a heavily debated point in the sources. You have to look at the mechanics of this specific meeting.
Okay.
This wasn't a standard ceremonially convened session in their usual meeting hall. This was a really hasty, forced inquiry ordered by a Gentile Roman commander.
Right, Lysias was just demanding answers right then and there.
Exactly. So Ananias might not have even been wearing the distinctive priestly garments for a meeting that was forced by the Romans.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and some sources suggest Paul had poor eyesight. But also, Paul had been away from Jerusalem for years, and the high priesthood had essentially become this corrupt political appointment, just bought and sold under Roman oversight.
So Paul is just looking at this corrupt politician acting like a thug in a hastily called meeting. And maybe in his righteous indignation, he just only saw a corrupt man and totally failed to see the office.
Precisely. But the moment they inform him of the man's official capacity, Paul separates the man from the office. He submits to the scripture, even though the man holding the office is completely devoid of integrity.
Right. Well, the apology certainly doesn't diffuse the tension in the room.
Not at all.
Paul realizes he is facing a deeply prejudiced jury. He knows he won't get a fair hearing, so he just abruptly changes his strategy.
From legal defense to absolute brilliant disruption.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because he scans the room, right? And he notices the council is divided into two factions.
The Pharisees and the Sadducees.
Right, so Paul just cries out, I am a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees. I am on trial concerning the hope and resurrection of the dead.
It's a masterstroke. He exploits this massive pre-existing theological divide.
What exactly was the split there?
Well, the Pharisees fiercely believed in the resurrection, in angels and in spirits. But the Sadducees, they denied all three. They only accepted the first 5 books of Moses.
So instantly, the council just fractures.
Instantly.
It honestly reminds me of modern political party flipping. Like, the Pharisees didn't suddenly like Paul. They didn't embrace his Christian message at all.
No, not in the slightest.
They just liked that he validated their theological stance against the Sadducees. It was just pure, unfiltered partisanship.
Exactly. The Pharisees start arguing, we find nothing wrong with this man. What if a spirit or an angel spoke to him? They are just using Paul as a weapon against their rivals.
And then it just devolves into a riot.
A violent one. The argument gets so intense that the Roman commander, Lysias, is terrified. Paul is going to be literally torn to pieces right in front of him.
So he orders his troops to go in, physically extract Paul, and drag him back to the safety of the fortress.
Right. Which shifts the narrative completely. We go from this deafening, violent chaos in the courtroom to the quiet, terrifying solitude of a Roman prison cell.
Yeah, that transition must have been so jarring for Paul, just sitting there in the dark. But the following night, the Lord stands near Paul.
In a vision.
Right, and tells him, take courage. As you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome.
Which is huge.
It is. And the commentary sources brought up this analogy that I really loved. They compared it to a fire department.
A fire department.
Yeah. Think about it. A fire department spends most of its time in silence, just waiting at the station.
Right, you don't see them every day.
Exactly. You don't hear sirens on a random Tuesday morning. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. You only see the trucks and hear the sirens when a massive emergency breaks out.
That's a really good point.
God is always present, but his presence is most powerfully, visibly manifested during extreme emergencies. Paul was at his lowest point, and the sirens showed up.
Well, it connects to the bigger picture here. Paul had desperately wanted to preach in Rome. It was the center of the empire.
Right.
So at this exact moment when Paul might have been second-guessing his entire mission or feeling like he totally failed in Jerusalem, God provides exactly what he needs to hear. The mission isn't over.
He's going to Rome.
He's going to Rome.
Which is amazing. But while Paul is experiencing this divine peace inside the fortress, there is a literal deadly conspiracy brewing just outside the walls.
A very organized one. Over 40 Jewish men bind themselves with an oath.
An anathema, right, like a curse.
Exactly. They swear a curse on themselves not to eat or drink anything until they have successfully assassinated Paul.
That is fanatical dedication.
It really is. And they actually collude with the chief priests, who were mostly Sadducees, to set a trap. They want the Roman commander to bring Paul down for a quote-unquote further investigation.
So they can just ambush him on the transport route?
Right. It's a solid tactical plan.
But the whole thing falls apart because of a nephew.
Yes. Paul's nephew, the son of his sister.
What?
Which, by the way, is a fascinating historical nugget because it's the only mention of Paul's family in the entire narrative.
Oh, really? The only time?
The only time. And this nephew overhears the plot.
So he overhears it and he goes to the Roman fortress to warn Paul. But wait, I have to ask, how does he even get in?
That's where Roman law comes into play.
Right.
Because Paul is a Roman citizen, he wasn't just thrown in a dark hole. He was granted special visitation privileges.
Oh, okay.
Family and friends were legally allowed to bring food and attend to a citizen's needs while they awaited trial, so the nephew could legally enter the fortress and warn him.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. I was thinking about this.
What's that?
If the plot is foiled, right, and
Right.
Paul gets away, what happens to those 40 assassins who swore that deadly oath?
The ones who swore not to eat or drink.
Yeah. Did they just starve to death out of religious obligation?
That's a great question. But no, they didn't starve.
Really? How did they get out of it?
The sources actually detailed this incredible piece of rabbinic law, specifically in the Mishnah, in Nedarim 3.3. It states that if a vow becomes impossible to fulfill due to circumstances entirely beyond a person's control.
Like the entire Roman army intervening.
Exactly. If it's impossible, the individuals are legally released from the conditions of their vow. The rabbis didn't expect people to hold to a curse if the objective was rendered physically impossible.
Wow, so they got a legal loophole to eat again.
They absolutely did.
That is wild. Well, armed with the intelligence from this nephew, Commander Lysias realizes he has a massive security crisis on his hands.
He is sitting on a powder keg.
Yeah, and he takes extreme measures to protect his Roman prisoner. I mean, the numbers here are just staggering.
Tell me about it. Lysias orders a massive escort.
He calls up 200 soldiers, right?
Yes, 200 heavy infantry, plus 70 cavalrymen on horseback, and another 200 spearmen.
That is 470 troops in total.
Which is nearly half the entire Jerusalem garrison at the time.
Half the garrison for one guy. And they move out at 9:00 p.m., the third hour of the night.
Under the cover of total darkness.
But Lysias has to explain all of this, right? He can't just send 400 troops and a prisoner to his boss without a note.
No, he has to send an official transfer letter to Governor Felix. And the sources point out how Lysias acts as the ultimate spin doctor in this letter.
Oh, he completely spins it to save his own career.
He really does. If you read between the lines, it's hilarious. He writes that he rescued Paul because he learned Paul was a Roman citizen.
Which is a flat-out lie.
Totally. He completely omits the incredibly inconvenient fact that he had actually tied Paul up and was seconds away from illegally flogging him before he found out about his citizenship.
Right. He almost tortured a Roman citizen, which could have gotten him executed.
Exactly. He is just covering his tracks, presenting himself as this vigilant defender of Roman law.
Well, the spin works. So this massive army marches out. It's a grueling night march to a city called Antipatris,
Which is about 56 to 60 kilometers away. A very tough march.
And once they get there, they're out of the immediate danger zone. So the next day, the 400 foot soldiers return to Jerusalem.
And the 70 cavalry take Paul the rest of the way to Caesarea.
Right. And Governor Felix receives the letter, agrees to hear the case, and places Paul under guard in Herod's Praetorium, which is a palace.
It is.
So what does this all mean? We look at this whole narrative and you just have to marvel at it.
Yeah.
This once persecuted missionary who was being beaten in the street a few days prior ends up riding a military horse guarded by hundreds of soldiers.
Safely delivered by the very empire that occupied his land.
It's unbelievable.
It really is. And, I want to leave you with a final thought to really mull over today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Consider the profound irony here. Paul's safety was guaranteed by the pagan Roman military. But the religious leaders, the ones who were supposed to represent God, were the ones actively orchestrating a bloody assassination.
Wow. Yeah.
It really forces us to examine our own assumptions, doesn't it? About where true protection lies, where danger hides, and how human institutions, both secular and religious, often operate in complete opposition to their stated purposes.
That is a deeply provocative thought to end on. You really can't judge these institutions just by their labels.
Not at all.
Well, that is all the time we have for this deep dive. Thank you so much for exploring this with us. We sincerely say goodbye for now and declare that God blesses all of you, the listeners. Until next time.